Ryan never thought silence could feel so heavy, but every night for the past 3 months, the house had turned into a battlefield of unspoken words. Maya could sense it, the shift in his voice, the distant look in his eyes, the way he held his phone a little too tight, and the way he started hiding the small silver lockbox in the back seat of his car, as if it carried his last remaining secret. At first, she tried to brush it off as overthinking, but something inside her kept whispering that Ryan wasn't the same man she married, and the uneasiness sank deeper when he began coming home late, brushing past her with forced smiles, saying he had extra shifts, even though she knew his company had cut overtime months ago. Each lie poked at her heart like a needle she couldn't pull out. Every night she waited for him on the couch, pretending to scroll her phone, hoping he would walk in, look into her eyes, and tell her the truth. But Ryan seemed to be drifting to a place she couldn't reach, and his absence echoed louder than his presence. Even small things like the faint scent of perfume on his jacket that wasn't hers, or the hushed conversations he abruptly ended when she entered the room, fed the storm brewing inside her chest. Until one Thursday evening, everything reached a boiling point, when Ryan hurried out earlier than usual, carrying the same silver lockbox like it was more precious than their marriage. Maya watched him from the living room window, her heart pounding harder than her thoughts could keep up. And before she realized it, she grabbed her keys and followed him, driving slowly, keeping her headlights dimmed so he wouldn't notice. Ryan went across town, past the familiar streets, into an old shopping district where most stores had already closed for the night, and he finally parked near an empty lot behind a shuttered diner, the kind of place where no one would question secrets. Maya's breath caught in her throat when another car pulled in moments later. A woman. Young, well-dressed, confident. She walked toward Ryan with a familiarity that made Maya's stomach twist. Ryan didn't hug her, but the woman placed a hand on his arm, spoke softly, and Ryan looked relieved, almost grateful. A look Maya hadn't seen on his face in months. From her car, Maya watched their shadows blend under the dim streetlight, and a bitter thought sliced through her chest. This was it. The truth she feared. The confirmation she prayed she was wrong about. As Ryan opened the silver lockbox and showed the woman something inside, Maya's heart crumbled. She didn't know what hurt more, the idea of him sharing secrets with another woman, or the fact that he was willing to lie so easily to her face. She could feel the sting of betrayal rising behind her eyes, mixing with anger, confusion, and a desperation she didn't want to admit. She pressed her forehead against the steering wheel, trying to breathe through the ache, trying to convince herself that this moment didn't mean the end. But in her gut, she felt something snap. She wasn't just losing trust, she was losing Ryan. And tonight, for the first time, she wasn't sure if she wanted him back. Maya drove home with her hands trembling on the wheel, replaying every second she had witnessed in that dim parking lot, the image of the woman's hand on Ryan's arm burning into her memory like a scar she couldn't erase. And by the time she pulled into their driveway, her mind was drowning in a mix of anger and fear. Anger because Ryan had lied straight to her face again, and fear because she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever he was hiding wasn't just an affair. It felt deeper, heavier, something that had been slowly hollowing him out from the inside. As she stepped into the house, everything felt wrong. The empty living room, the hollow hallway, the framed photos on the wall that once held warmth, but now looked like echoes of a life slipping out of her hands. And she sat on the couch, staring at the door, waiting to confront him. But the confrontation she imagined, shouting, tears, demands, felt too small for the weight sitting in her chest. When the clock hit 11:52 p.m., Ryan finally walked in. Exhausted, distracted, brushing a tired hand through his hair, unaware that Maya had already seen the side of his life he'd tried to keep hidden. She watched him from across the room, studying the slump in his shoulders, the way he hesitated before sitting near her, like he was afraid she'd see right through him. He mumbled something about work, but his voice cracked at the end, and she caught it. Fear. Guilt. Something fragile he didn't want her touching. And she wanted to scream, "Why are you lying to me? Who was that woman? What's in the box?" But the words jammed in her throat, trapped between wanting the truth and being terrified of it. So instead, she asked softly, "Are you okay?" And the question startled him more than a confrontation would have. Ryan looked at her with wide, tired eyes, his lips parting like he wanted to tell her everything. But then he blinked, and the wall came up again. And he simply whispered, "Just tired." She nodded, pretending to accept it, though inside she was unraveling. And that night she lay awake listening to Ryan breathe beside her, a rhythm that once comforted her, but now felt foreign, unsure whether the man sleeping next to her was still the person she married. The next morning, Ryan left early again, and Maya felt something inside her break. She couldn't live in this fog of half-truths anymore. So she did something she never imagined she would do. She searched his car. Her hands shook as she opened the back door, pulling out jackets, receipts, anything that might explain the distance that had grown between them. And after a few minutes, she found the silver lock box tucked beneath the passenger seat, where he must have slid it in a hurry. It was heavier than she expected, cold against her palms, and she tried the latch, even though she knew it wouldn't open. Of course it was locked. Ryan guarded it like it contained his whole soul. And for a long moment, she stood there with the box pressed against her chest, wondering what kept her husband up at night, wondering why he shared its contents with a stranger, but not with her. She placed it back exactly as it was, closed the door quietly, and leaned against the car, swallowing the ache rising in her throat. She had spent months blaming herself for the distance, thinking maybe she wasn't affectionate enough, supportive enough, patient enough. But now she knew the truth. Ryan wasn't drifting away from her by accident. He was keeping her out on purpose. And Maya decided, for the first time in their marriage, that she would no longer wait for Ryan to choose honesty. She was going to find the truth herself, even if it destroyed everything. Maya spent the next day pretending everything was normal, moving through the house like a ghost drifting between rooms, making coffee she didn't drink, scrolling through her phone without reading a single word, all while her mind kept circling back to the same image, Ryan standing under the dim streetlight by that woman, showing her something inside the silver lockbox with a seriousness he never shared with Maya anymore. And every time the scene replayed, her chest tightened with a mix of betrayal and disbelief. She needed answers, real ones, not the excuses Ryan rehearsed every night. So she drove back to the parking lot where she had followed him. The place looked even emptier in daylight, a forgotten corner of the city with peeling paint, cracked asphalt, and the lingering smell of rain. And she stood there trying to picture why Ryan would choose this spot for a secret meeting. Still, it made no sense unless he wanted to stay hidden. She took a few photos of the location, hoping they'd help her piece things together later. And as she slid her phone into her pocket, she caught a reflection in a nearby storefront. Someone watching her. Her heart jumped, but when she turned, the person walked away quickly, disappearing behind the diner. She chased a few steps, then stopped, realizing she was spiraling into paranoia. But the strange thing was, the silhouette looked familiar. She brushed the thought away and drove home, but uneasiness clung to her, gripping tighter when she reached her neighborhood and spotted a black car parked across the street she'd never seen before. The driver looked away as soon as she noticed him, and Maya's pulse spiked, but she forced herself not to panic. maybe it was nothing. Or maybe she was finally seeing things Ryan had been hiding for months. That night, when Ryan returned home, she watched him quietly as he went through the usual motions, dropping his keys, loosening his tie, pretending everything was fine. But he looked restless, pacing around the kitchen, checking the window every few minutes, his hands trembling slightly the way they did when he was anxious about something bigger than work. Then his phone buzzed, and he snatched it up too fast, shielding the screen as if Maya might catch a glimpse. His expression tightened. I need to step out, he muttered, grabbing his jacket. It's work. She didn't argue. She simply nodded, and the calmness in her reaction seemed to scare him more than suspicion ever had. The moment the door closed behind him, Maya grabbed her keys, slipped into her car, and followed him again. This time, more prepared, more focused, determined to catch him in the truth instead of assumptions. Ryan drove across town, but not to the same parking lot. He took a different route, eventually stopping near a small community center with its lights off and only a faint glow spilling from a side room. She parked far enough to stay hidden, waited until he went inside, then quietly approached the window. Through the dusty glass, she saw two figures, Ryan, pacing nervously, and the same woman from the parking lot, seated at a table, flipping through papers Maya couldn't identify. The woman wasn't touching Ryan this time. In fact, she looked frustrated, tapping her pen against the table as if urging him to speak. And Ryan kept rubbing his forehead like he was trying to gather courage to say something important. Then Ryan slammed his hand against the table, whispering sharply, "I can't lose her." Maya froze. Lose who? Me? The woman leaned closer, her voice firm, yet almost caring. And for a strange second, Maya sensed something in their body language, something that didn't look romantic at all. Something that looked like concern, protection. But before she could think deeper, Ryan turned toward the window, and she ducked down just in time. Her heart pounded like a drum in her skull. Whatever they were discussing, whatever was in that silver lockbox, it was bigger than an affair. And for the first time, doubt crept in. What if the truth wasn't what she thought at all? Maya stayed crouched beneath the window, her breath shaking as she listened to the muffled voices inside, each word cracking another piece of her certainty. And for the first time, she wondered if she had misread more than just Ryan's distance, because the tone in that room didn't match what she expected from two people having an affair. There was no flirting, no warmth, just tension. Heavy, serious tension, as if both of them were struggling under the weight of a secret bigger than either could carry alone. And curiosity pulled her upward until she dared to peek again, watching Ryan sink into a chair, burying his face in his hands the way he only did when he felt cornered. The woman stood, paced, then dropped into the chair beside him, sliding a folder across the table. And Maya strained to read the label. Still, she could only make out fragments: evaluation, OBS, pattern, health, and confusion tangled with fear as Ryan whispered, "She's getting worse, and she doesn't even see it. She thinks I'm the one pulling away." Maya felt her stomach flip. The words punched the air right out of her lungs. She's getting worse. Who were they talking about? Her chest tightened. Were they talking about her? Before she could process it, the woman spoke again, voice firm yet strangely protective. "If we wait longer, it'll spiral. She's already following you, checking your phone, imagining things. Ryan, she needs help, and you can't do this alone anymore." Maya's pulse roared in her ears. She wasn't imagining things. She was following him because he was lying, hiding. stepping out every night like a stranger in their marriage. How could they twist her into the problem? Anger ignited in her veins. But beneath it, a sliver of doubt pierced through. Was she spiraling? Had she really changed that much without noticing? She pressed her hand against her mouth to keep from gasping, but at that exact moment, her elbow brushed against a metal trash bin outside the window, making a soft clang that echoed painfully in the quiet street. Inside, the woman's head snapped up, and Ryan stood instantly, alert, scanning the window. Maya ducked, heart attacking her ribs, but it was too late. She heard footsteps rushing toward the door. She sprinted back to her car, fumbled with the keys, and started the engine just as Ryan burst out the side entrance, looking wildly. She had never seen his face like that. Panicked, desperate, almost afraid. And for a second, their eyes met across the dim parking lot. Ryan froze. Maya sped away. She didn't stop driving until she reached the far side of town, parking behind a grocery store, her hands shaking violently on the steering wheel as her mind replayed every word she'd overheard. The panic in Ryan's voice, the woman urging him to act before it spirals, the file labeled with terms she didn't fully understand. The more she replayed it, the more everything twisted inside her. Were they lying about her to justify something worse? Or had she really been slipping into a version of herself she refused to see? Tears blurred her vision as she leaned back, chest heaving, every thought collapsing into a single unbearable question. What was in that lockbox that they thought she wasn't ready to see? And right then, as the night swallowed the last bit of warmth she had left, Maya made a decision. No more watching from the outside. No more half-truths. No more being treated like she was losing herself. She would break the truth, even if it meant breaking her marriage in the process. Maya returned home close to midnight, exhausted, scared, and furious, her mind running in circles so fast she felt dizzy, and the moment she stepped inside, the silence hit her like a wall, thick and suffocating, as though the house itself knew something she didn't. She paced back and forth, replaying the parking lot, the file, the voices, the way Ryan looked at her, as if he wasn't hiding from her, but protecting her from something she didn't understand. And the more she tried to push away the thought that she might be the one unraveling, the more her chest clenched with the fear she couldn't swallow. When Ryan's car finally pulled into the driveway, she braced herself. But instead of storming inside, he stepped in slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. And the moment his eyes met hers, she felt a strange ache spread through her ribs because he didn't look guilty. He looked heartbroken. "Maya," he whispered, taking a hesitant step forward, "I know you followed me." She didn't deny it. She just stood still, arms crossed, heart pounding, waiting for the truth she felt she both needed and feared. Ryan exhaled shakily, glancing toward the hallway like he was silently begging for help. And before Maya could ask why, the front door opened again, and the same woman from the parking lot walked in. Maya's heart stopped. Her fists clenched, ready to explode. But the woman raised both hands gently and said, "Maya, it's me." And in the dim light, with her hood down and hair tied back, Maya finally saw it. Recognition hitting her like a punch. It was her sister, her older sister, Leela, the one she hadn't spoken to in almost 2 years after a brutal argument that fractured their relationship. The one Maya cut off so thoroughly she had deleted every photo, every message, every reminder. Why were you with him?" Maya choked out, her voice barely holding together. And Leela stepped forward slowly, eyes soft with pain Maya didn't want to understand. "Because Ryan asked for help," Leela said quietly. "You haven't been okay for months. You've been losing sleep, forgetting things, imagining threats that aren't there, isolating yourself from everyone, including him." Maya shook her head violently, backing away. No, I'm not imagining anything. He lied. He hid things. Ryan cut in, voice breaking. "Because you've been convinced everyone is against you. Every time I tried to bring it up, you shut down or panicked. I didn't want to push you further." Leela pulled the silver-locked box from her bag and placed it on the table. "This isn't what you think," she whispered. Maya stared at it. The box she'd built her suspicion around. The box that felt like the symbol of every lie Ryan told. And with trembling fingers, she opened it as Leela unlocked the latch. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Written by Maya herself. Notes that she had written during a depressive episode 2 years ago. The episode she barely remembered. The one she had denied ever happened after her fight with Leela. Some were apologies. Some were confessions of fear she never sent. Ryan spoke softly. "You asked me to keep them, to hold on to them until you were ready to face everything again." Leela added, voice breaking, "We've been trying to help you, not hide from you." The room blurred as Maya sank into a chair, hands trembling over her own handwriting, memories flooding back in fragments, panic attacks she pretended didn't exist, arguments she forgot she started, days that she couldn't remember at all. Everything she thought she knew cracked open. Ryan knelt beside her, tears in his voice. "I wasn't leaving you, Maya. I was trying to bring you back." And in that moment, for the first time in months, Maya didn't feel betrayed. She felt seen. Painfully. Terrifyingly seen. And as the weight of the truth finally settled, she looked at both of them and whispered the first honest words she'd said in a long time. "I need help." Ryan took her hand. Leela wrapped her arms around her. And for the first time forever, Maya didn't run from the truth. She opened the door to it. And that's how Emma finally learned that sometimes the loudest betrayals are the ones hidden in silence. And the people we trust the most can become strangers overnight. But healing isn't about forgetting. It's about reclaiming your voice, your peace, and the courage to walk away from the places where your heart was never safe. If this story hit you, drop a like, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more intense real-life twists every week.